where the ancestors still walk, sacred sites of Igboland, is not just a title, it is an invitation to step into a living story, one where history has not died, where memory has not dimmed, and where the footsteps of those who came before still echo across the land. When we speak of sacred sites, we are not merely discussing old places covered in moss and myth. We are speaking of locations that carry lessons, warnings, wisdom, and the essence of identity. And in a world that is moving faster than ever, a world that often forgets its roots in the rush toward the future, there is something profoundly empowering about returning to the places that shaped a people, to remind ourselves who we are, where we come from, and what we are capable of becoming. Across Igboland, there are sites that have witnessed centuries of courage, innovation, conflict, and unity. These sites are not remote relics. They are mirrors showing us what human beings can achieve when guided by clarity, resilience, and purpose. Each sacred hill, each ancient grove, each river with whispered histories carries a message, an invitation to rise above limitations, to reclaim dignity, and to step boldly toward greatness. But too often, people today underestimate the power of origin. They think motivation must always come from modern heroes or global icons, forgetting that the greatest fuel for the human spirit often lies in the soil beneath one's own feet. Imagine standing at the roots of the Ogbunike caves, feeling the silent rhythm of centuries beneath the ground. Long before cities grew loud and global narratives drowned out local memory, people walked into those caverns seeking clarity, renewal, or deeper understanding. But even more important than what they sought is what they believed, that challenges are not permanent, that darkness can be navigated, and that every person can walk out of confusion into a new beginning. And today you don't need to crawl into a cave to understand that mess. All you need is the willingness to pause, to breathe, to listen to your own spirit, and to recognize that your story is not defined by yesterday's mistakes or circumstances. Your journey, like the winding paths inside the caves, may twist and turn, but it also leads upward. Travel further across Igboland and you find the sacred grove of Agbani, the kind of place where leaders once gathered, where questions heavier than one lifetime were discussed, where decisions shaped generations. And in those quiet gatherings, one powerful truth emerges, that leadership is not born from loudness or force, but from reflection, understanding, and responsibility. In your own life, whether you lead a family, a business, a dream, or simply yourself, there is a sacred grove within you, a space where you must pause and think before you act. Greatness does not come from rushing. Power does not emerge from uncontrolled emotion. Instead, it comes from aligning your mind with your purpose, from choosing clarity over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and patience over panic. Consider the ancient town of Arochukwu, where the legendary pathways once stood as places of judgment, refuge, and diplomacy. Many have heard the stories, but what matters most is not the literal tales, it is the message behind them. These stories remind us that every human being, no matter how lost or burdened, seeks fairness, seeks protection, seeks belonging. They also remind us that community is a force stronger than fear. In our world today, where many people struggle alone, overwhelmed by pressures or uncertainty, the wisdom of such places calls out, find your support system, build connections, stand together, because no matter how strong you think you are, your strength multiplies when you walk with others. Then there is the stream of Ohum near Naika, a place where generations walked to find strength, where water did not simply quench thirst but symbolized renewal. You see, life has a way of weighing heavily on the spirit, dreams delayed, opportunities missed, mistakes made. But the presence of water in sacred places teaches a powerful lesson that renewal is always possible. You are not defined by who you were 5 years ago or even 5 days ago. You can begin again. You can reimagine your life. You can recover your confidence. You can cleanse your mind of the voices telling you that you cannot rise. Like flowing water, you can move around obstacles, carve new paths, and continue your journey with clarity. Another powerful site lies in Nari, often called the cradle of certain Igbo traditions, one of the most intellectually profound centers of culture in West Africa. What makes Nari remarkable is not only its antiquity but its philosophical depth. It teaches that identity is not given by strangers, it is defined by one's own values, one's own understanding, one's own choice. In a modern world where people are constantly compared, categorized, judged, or pressured into conformity, the principles of Nari offer a timeless message. You are allowed to define yourself. You are allowed to choose your path. You are allowed to rise on your own terms. You do not need external approval to fulfill your purpose. And then there is the mystical Omaba festival of Natsika, a living example of renewal, discipline, and community transformation. At first glance, it may seem like a cultural event, but beneath it lies a profound motivational truth that cycles of life include periods of quiet preparation, intense work, symbolic death, and powerful rebirth. When life seems still or slow, it does not mean you are failing. It may simply be your season of preparation. And when life tests you with hardship, it may be your period of refinement. But every challenging season carries the promise of emergence, of rising stronger, wiser, and more determined. You are never stuck, you are simply evolving. When you walk across these sacred sites, whether physically or through memory, one thing becomes clear. The ancestors did not just walk on the land, they built principles into it. And those principles still stand today: resilience, courage, unity, purpose, and renewal. They call out to anyone willing to listen, because deep down, every person has a destiny waiting to be awakened, a fire waiting to burn again, a dream waiting to be reclaimed. You are part of a story much larger than your struggles. You come from innovators, philosophers, strategists, builders, and dreamers. And if they survived storms, you can too. If they built greatness with fewer tools than you have today, then imagine what you can build. In our world today, many feel disconnected from themselves. They chase validation instead of vision. They compare instead of improve. They forget that strength does not come from outside, it grows from within. And that is why returning to ancestral places, physically or through thought, matters. Not for superstition, not for ritual, but for awakening, for remembering, for rediscovering the clarity that modern noise often buries. Every great transformation begins when a person remembers who they are and where they come from. So let the lessons of these sacred sites speak to you. Let them tell you that obstacles are not the end of your story, that your identity is your power, that your history is not a burden but a foundation, that healing and renewal are always available, that wisdom is a lifelong pursuit, that courage is a daily decision, and that greatness is not a gift, it is a responsibility. Walk through life knowing that you are not alone. The strength of generations flows in your bloodstream. Their endurance shaped your possibilities. Their achievements shaped your opportunity. And their stories now stand as reminders that you can rise above adversity. You can break limitations. You can build a future that honors the past without being trapped by it. Where the ancestors still walk is not only a place, it is a mindset. It is the awareness that your life is part of a continuum, and that everything you do, every decision, every act of courage, every step toward your goals becomes part of the legacy you will leave behind. You don't need sacred hills or groves to know that you carry the spirit of resilience with you. You carry the ability to reshape your future. You carry the strength to triumph over obstacles. So as you move forward, remember this: the world does not honor potential, it honors action. The ancestors did not leave their marks by dreaming alone. They worked, they created, they built. And now it is your turn. Your life is your site of greatness. Your mind is your grove of wisdom. Your journey is your sacred path. And the footprints you leave will one day inspire others. Just as the ancient sites continue to inspire today, stand tall, walk forward, and let the strength of your heritage fuel the fire of your destiny. For where the ancestors still walk, greatness still begins, and your chapter is only just started. Heritage as a source of human strength begins with the understanding that every person, no matter where they stand today, is the product of countless stories, struggles, triumphs, and choices made by generations before them. When people walk across the lands of their ancestors or even think about the places their forebears once stood, they discover that heritage is not a museum piece trapped behind glass. It is a living force that continues shaping character, vision, and resilience. In an age where many chase validation from social media or measure themselves by the standards of strangers, it becomes even more important to recognize that authentic strength grows from within. and that within is shaped by the deeper memory of one's people. Sacred sites across Igboland are powerful examples of this. Whether one thinks of the ancient centers of learning in Mari, the silent caves of Ogbunike, the reflective groves of Agbani, or the communal valleys shaped by centuries of innovation and problem solving. Each place carries a message. These sites remind us that resilience is not new, that determination did not begin with modern society, and that clarity has always been found by those who pause long enough to listen to the echoes of their origin. Every generation faces its own storms, but the storms of the past teach us that human beings have always navigated darkness, uncertainty, and hardship, and if they overcame with fewer tools, fewer resources, and more obstacles, then today's individual has even greater potential to rise. Heritage is not about nostalgia or longing for yesterday. It is about drawing energy from the understanding that you are not starting from zero. You carry the spirit of thinkers who asked bold questions, builders who shaped communities from raw earth, leaders who solved conflicts with strategy instead of fear, and dreamers who believed in possibilities much bigger than themselves. When you understand this, confusion becomes clarity, doubt becomes confidence, and hesitation becomes action. A person grounded in heritage stands like a tree with deep roots, able to endure strong winds without losing direction. They know that challenges do not define them, responses do. They know that wisdom is not just found in modern books or digital platforms, it is also hidden in stories passed down through families, in songs that carried coded lessons, in places where communities once gathered to make decisions that shaped their destiny. Heritage teaches that identity is the ultimate compass. When you know who you are, every step has purpose. When you understand the journey of those before you, every challenge becomes part of a larger story instead of a personal failure. Heritage gives people permission to stand tall, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. It reminds them that the human spirit has always been stronger than circumstances, and that their own potential is not something fragile or uncertain, but something rooted in generations of proven resilience. And when people use this understanding as motivation, not as a reason to cling to the past, but as inspiration to build a stronger future, they unlock a deeper kind of courage. They begin to see that progress does not require abandoning where one comes from. It requires transforming the wisdom of the past into actions that uplift the present. Heritage becomes a tool, a fuel, and a foundation. It empowers creativity, strengthens discipline, and sharpens focus. It allows people to stand in modern spaces, classrooms, workplaces, communities, global platforms, and speak with a voice that carries the weight of memory and the confidence of identity. It helps them understand that they are part of a larger human story and that their contribution matters. And as they rise, they carry their ancestors with them, not as shadows, but as sources of strength. The greatest lesson is that heritage is not meant to hold people back. It is meant to propel them forward. When someone understands the depth of the legacy behind them, they realize there is no ceiling strong enough to contain their potential. They discover that courage is inherited, resilience is inherited, and purpose is inherited. They see that the past is not a burden but a gift, a map, a guide, and a reminder that human beings can always rise higher. And with that realization comes a powerful truth. When you walk with the memory of your heritage, you do not walk alone. You walk with the determination of those who came before and the responsibility to inspire those who will come after. That is the true meaning of strength drawn from heritage, the power to walk boldly into the future because you carry the wisdom of the past in your mind and the spirit of your ancestors in your heart. Awakening purpose through ancestral memory begins with the simple realization that human beings often forget how much power already exists within them. Not because the power is gone, but because the noise of modern life buries the quiet reminders of where they truly come from. When a person reconnects with the memory of their heritage, something remarkable happens. Confusion becomes clarity, fear becomes understanding, and doubt begins to fade like mist at sunrise. Ancestral memory is not limited to rituals or traditions. It is the deep awareness that you are linked to generations who faced struggles, overcame setbacks, built communities from the soil, created systems of knowledge, and designed pathways of survival long before technology and convenience existed. When someone walks through sacred sites in Igboland or even imagines them in their mind, they step into an ancient classroom where the lessons are not written on boards, but carved into the landscape itself. The caves remind us that every person goes through dark, uncertain seasons, but darkness is not the end, it is the beginning of transformation. Inside those winding passages, people once walked with courage, trusting that every step forward would lead to an exit, a breakthrough, a new chapter. In life, the same truth applies. Purpose is often revealed after a person has walked through their personal cave, whether that cave is failure, heartbreak, self-doubt, or fear of the unknown. The groves stand as symbols of reflection, the quiet spaces where leaders, thinkers, and visionaries learn to still their minds before making decisions that shape their communities. In today's world, reflection is more important than ever because purpose cannot grow in noise. It grows in moments of stillness, when a person finally hears their own inner voice. The rivers, with their flowing rhythm, teach the lesson of renewal. No matter how heavy a person feels, no matter how lost they believe they are, renewal is possible. Water does not stop when it meets a stone. It simply flows around it, reminding us that obstacles may slow us down but cannot stop us unless we surrender. And when someone begins to embrace renewal, they realize that their past mistakes do not cancel their future potential. They become stepping stones toward a clearer identity. The ancient towns, built on foundations of leadership, remind us that purpose is not discovered through chance, it is shaped through responsibility. Our ancestors understood that decisions must serve the community, not just the individual, and that leadership requires wisdom, discipline, and patience. When people study their heritage, they learn that leadership is not about titles, it is about influence and the willingness to act with integrity, even when no one is watching. By seeing these sacred places as metaphors for personal growth rather than artifacts of history, individuals begin to unlock the deeper meaning of purpose. Purpose is not a single event, it is a lifelong awakening. It begins with understanding that identity is not something the world gives you, it is something you uncover within yourself. When a person finally recognizes the strength flowing from their ancestry, they stop walking timidly. They recognize that they are supported by generations of resilience. They realize that their dreams are not random. They are invitations to continue a legacy. And when they look at the challenges of today, those challenges no longer intimidate them because they know others before them faced even greater difficulties and still carved out paths where none exist. The memory of ancestors becomes a source of quiet confidence, a reminder that courage has always been part of the spirit. It encourages a person to rise each morning with renewed determination, to push beyond limitations, to silence the inner voices that say you can't and listen instead to the deeper voice that says you were built for this. And as purpose awakens, life becomes clear, decisions become intentional, dreams become structured, discipline becomes natural, not forced. Motivation becomes deeper, not temporary. A person who walks with ancestral memory walks with a stronger step, not because they are looking backward, but because they finally understand the foundation beneath them. They see that they are a bridge between the wisdom of yesterday and the possibilities of tomorrow. They recognize that they are not simply living their own story, they are carrying forward a story that began long before they were born and will continue long after they are gone. And when a person embraces this truth, they stop living aimlessly and start living deliberately, knowing that their purpose is not just for themselves but for everyone who will follow. In this way, ancestral memory does not trap people in the past, it elevates them into the future with clarity, confidence, and a fire that cannot be extinguished.